Welcome to the Beyond Divorce Embracing Change podcast. My name is Michael Flores, and I will be your host while we explore the complex journey of divorce with empathy, insight, and practical knowledge. Whether you're contemplating separation, in a divorce, or looking for support post-divorce, our episodes provide expert guidance, stories, and strategies to help you through every step of the process. We are actual therapists, helping clients who sit on our couches every day through their difficulties of divorce. You are not alone. Join us as we delve in and find solutions that give you hope again. We're glad you're here.
This podcast is not intended to replace legal or personal help. This podcast is for informational purposes only.
Well, good day to everyone that's here joining us again, whether you're on YouTube watching us or you're hearing us on one of the podcast audios. We want to thank you so much for being here as always. It is just a pleasure to get to offer this to all of you and put this information out there. This is our greatest hope is getting the information to you that is extremely usable, that you can put into practice and hopefully help your family, help your relationships, help yourself through all the different dynamics that are part of a divorce. So welcome back. We're glad to have you. This particular topic, we literally just made one topic called the drama triangle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally one aspect of many different aspects of family systems. But the drama triangle is something that we feel is informational, which will be shared with you to kind of talk to you about what it is, what it looks like, how it plays out, and really not necessarily for you to point fingers and say they're doing that, but to really watch how you're responding to things so that you don't fall into this cycle, right? Because it really is a negative cycle and can have some pretty big impacts on your kids' development, especially in divorce, in our opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So Jen's here today. She's going to be interviewing me on this. Yeah. And Jen and I are going to go back and forth. I'm going to ask Jen to be hard on me on this deal. Ask me some hard questions.
Yeah.
If you see anything or think of anything, and please offer as well your input as much as you can. So I hope so. I want to get them as much information as we can. So Jen will do that. I'm sure she's not going to hold back on me.
Not at all.
Perfect. Yeah. This is how we get better.
Exactly.
So love it. So we're going to go over this. So let's talk about what this is. The drama triangle was developed by a man named Stephen Karpman, and it was developed, I think, what you said, Jen,
1968?
68, right?
Yeah.
And so some people say 60s, some people say 70s. Let's just say it's right going into the 70s, but starting in the 60s.
Yeah.
And it's a pattern. It's literally a triangle. It's a pattern of interactions and roles.
Yeah.
A negative role cycle that people could play
Mm-hmm.
with other people in relationships. Is that about right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we're going to start with each three. I think we should tell the listeners what the three are and then go over each one.
Well, and I think that's part of it. The triangle is it's about interactions with people. So it's we all kind of play a part sometimes when you're in a conversation with people or in a relationship with people.
Yeah.
And it's a way to describe it. I think in divorce, it comes up probably more often.
Yeah.
Just because there is such a negative connotation when it comes to divorce sometimes. And it brings out the worst of us sometimes. And, this is a way to kind of think about how you are reacting in a situation and are you playing this part or not? Mm-hmm. And how we can work around not playing that part.
I see, and I'm going to offer them what the three tiers are of this. But I would say that it seems to me that the people that engage in this behavior typically have unresolved trauma.
Usually.
And unresolved pain, right? So it may not be considered what you call trauma, but it's a pain point, and they play that out in relationships. I told someone this the other day. I said, you know what people do with their past problems and their past pains when they're unresolved?
No.
They play them out in other relationships.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And so sometimes we seek relationships to fill voids.
Yeah.
And this is really why I think second marriages end in divorce at 65% versus first marriages at around 50%.
Because they're taking the same issues they had in the first marriage and bringing it to the second one, and it's still unresolved.
Yeah, and so one of the weird things is that people will marry their same or marry their opposite the first time, and they'll marry their same the second time. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
So like personality styles.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha.
So I'll marry my opposite personality. So if I'm real outgoing and they're kind of like the nerd and the free spirit, as Dave Ramsey used to call it.
Yeah.
First marriages typically are like that.
Yeah.
Second marriages, they marry the same. So if you're a free spirit, you'll marry a free spirit.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, because you're like,
Well, I have a question, though. So what happens when you remarry the same person?
meaning what? You divorce the same
You
person,
divorce
remarry
and
the same
remarry
person?
them? I know someone who was married and divorced to the same person 3 times.
Well, I think it goes back to what Dr. Robinson talked about. Yeah, when he said we do what's familiar.
Yeah.
And remember the whole sex with your ex thing is, why do people engage in that kind of stuff? Well, because it's
Exactly.
familiar, right? So we do. Have you noticed that people have assigned seats in church?
And school and classrooms and everywhere.
Without being assigned to them, we
Even at lunch.
gravitate to the same spot.
Even at lunch.
Do you have clients? Do you have clients that gravitate to the same seat in
Yeah.
your office every?
I have certain clients that sit in the chair and some that sit on the couch. And they're very particular about where they sit. Or if there's more than one person in there, they sit in a certain order.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
I think it's
We work in patterns.
we live in a hierarchy of things patterns is definitely, everyone has a pattern.
Yes.
And it's interesting, could be personal for a second, but one of the things I noticed in myself when I was younger, I used to journal, but I only journaled when I was upset about something. And so one day I just decided to go back through my journals and read them. And I was like, I noticed a pattern
Wow.
of my own behavior in my own relationships. And I was going through the same cycle every time.
Yes.
And it took that to help me figure out how to get out of it.
And this is why the drama triangle is a cyclical cycle, the same thing, but it's in a unhealthy way.
Yeah.
And I can't wait. So
So
let's
tell me about the first, there's 3 different parts of the triangle.
Right.
There's the persecutor, the rescuer, and the victim.
Yes, that's correct. Those are the
So-
3.
They all sound ominous. So let's talk about the persecutor first.
Okay.
Why don't you explain what that is?
The persecutor. Well, it is what it sounds like. What is a persecutor, right? It's someone who's like calling someone else out. How dare you this? And you're such a jerk, and you're so mean, and you're all these things, right? So the persecutor is attacking the other person. So if you came to me and said, I'm being alienated,
Yes.
you're describing a persecutor, right? Like, because the way you're describing
yes.
it, you're describing it like this person is attacking me. They're calling me all these names. They're having all these horrible negative conversations about me. It could be them. It could be their family members. Who knows? The point is, you're talking about being persecuted,
Yes.
right? Usually verbally in this case.
Yeah.
The persecutor in the drama triangle is typically not physical. It is verbal persecution, which is, you're a blasphemer, you're whatever you might be. Right? So let's go over some of that. I actually have a copy of a drama triangle here. What that might look like is open and passively angry, super aggressive, judgmental. In a sense, you could call it bullying.
Yeah.
Extremely demanding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And usually spiteful or scornful.
Oh, spite.
When people are hurt, they do that, right?
They get very spiteful.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes, I think the hard part in divorce is that it gets to the point of, I just want to win versus actually work through the issue.
Do you know what the scary thing is, though, with this drama triangle is I've actually seen this in marriage,
Oh, yeah.
not just in divorce. And I'll explain kind of how it works cyclically in just a second. But when people get divorced, they heighten.
Yeah.
Everything becomes elevated.
Exactly.
And so if I'm a persecutor, and that's typically one of the things I do, I'm going to elevate that in the divorce, right? So it may come out differently. It may come out toward the kid, not toward the parent.
Yes.
So I used to do it to the parent, kid's present,
Yeah.
right? Now we're divorced.
So now
So I'm
you
not
do
doing
it to the
I'm
kid.
doing it to the kid. Yeah, people will do that sometimes.
Becoming more demanding, more judgmental towards the child versus the parent.
Right. Or still talking about the other parent and how bad they are, but now to the child because the parent's no longer in earshot from it.
Exactly.
And this happens. So that's what a persecutor is.
Mhm.
You want to go into what the rescuer does?
Yeah, let's see what the rescuer does.
So the rescuer, in this mode, a person doesn't really value the other person's capacity to help themselves. So what they actually do is they become the rescuer.
Mhm.
And they'll say things that look like they're rescuing. So it's like, I'm just trying to protect you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or I'm keeping you away from this bad, evil person, right?
Mhm.
We see that. So this might look like a self-sacrifice or being super overly helpful. So this might be I've seen the parent come in, I'll ask a kid a hard question, and the parent will answer for the kid.
Oh, yes, totally.
And I'll go, oh, hold on one second. I wanted to hear from them.
Yeah.
And I try to do it nicely, right? But
Yeah.
sometimes I'll get the parent that comes in the rescuer role.
Well, and I see the kids coming in saying, they have a, let's say, helicopter parent who can constantly, do you need anything? What do you want for lunch? What do you want for
helicopter
dinner?
parents follow into
I think they do sometimes, because it's like they're trying to be so involved and so helpful, they don't realize they're actually pushing them away.
Mhm.
And it can actually backfire on them.
Right.
It's one thing to want to be helpful, yes, but at the same time, when you keep going when they're asking you not to, and that may be in the form of, I don't want to talk to you, or just not responding,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to learn to back off.
And so let me tell you so just using these two examples, I'll show you how the persecutor happens. So remember that they change roles in this.
One person can be all of these.
So you're the kid telling me, hey, Dad, I just need you to back off a little bit, like everyone. And I might look at you and go, you're so ungrateful.
Oh, yeah.
You see, I'm just here trying to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
How ungrateful are you to not allow me to help you like that?
Yeah.
You're just being a big jerk. And so I just switched on you. I went from I'm your helper, I'm going to cut you up to you're to a persecutor.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see? I just did both.
Yeah.
And that's what happens in these triangles, right? And parents do this with kids sometimes. I do it with the other parent. But when a divorce happens, I see it a lot with the kid.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the rescuer.
And then, yes. Now, what's the victim?
The victim.
And it's not a victim in the sense of they had a traumatic event. It's just the victim in the cycle.
They make themselves the victim.
Yes, playing the victim.
That's a good way to say it. They play it, right?
Yes.
Now, but they may really believe they are.
True. They do.
But it is a play. And so the victim in this drama triangle, the victim does something like, I'm always just the one getting hurt. I'm always trying to be helpful, and no one understands me, and I'm here all alone. I'm on my own island, and I just wanted to help. And you watch this. Persecutor, you're so ungrateful. Can you not tell I just want to help you?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm rescuer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go to, if you could just understand the pain I'm in.
Yeah.
But I just did all three.
Exactly.
And this happened. It doesn't probably happen that quick.
Yeah.
It may happen that quick, but they'll play the role, and the child is completely caught into what do I do? What I find here, if people have heard the other podcast, this is the parent who parentifies the child the most.
Yeah.
So if you parentify a kid, this is probably happening at some layer.
Explain what parentifying is for those that don't know.
So
we use it a lot, but not everybody knows what.
Well, thank you, Jets. I told you to be hard on me. I'm assuming everyone knows, but not everyone has probably heard it. The parentifying parent is tasking the child with either an emotional or physical need that the parent has. So if I'm hurt, right? If I'm hurting or hurt from the divorce, I didn't really want to get the whatever it might be, I might task you, probably subconsciously, with an emotional task to take care of my needs.
Yeah, to make me feel better.
I need you to make me feel better, right? Mm-hmm. So you might come check on me and say, Mom, are you okay? Or Dad, are you okay? Yeah. Right? Or you almost become my little counselor, right? So that would be like the emotional.
Listen
physical
to you vent, listen to you cry.
Right. The physical parentification is you're going to start taking over roles that I have. Like I might need you to cook dinner for the family now.
Yeah.
That never used to be your thing, but now I'm divorced. I don't have someone to help me, so now you're going to do it.
Or you're taking care of younger siblings.
Yes.
It's usually one of the biggest ones.
I've had scenarios where kids were actually balancing checkbooks, paying on bills. The kids.
I would not be surprised by that.
That's the physical parentification, right?
Yeah.
The child loses the innocence of their childhood because they have to parent the parent.
Yeah.
So that's the easiest way to remember parentification. When a parent engages in this drama triangle, it forces the kid to give in. That's what this drama triangle is designed to do. It's to give me what I need. I'm going to try 3 different ways to get what I need out of you. Yeah. Right? So I'm going to persecute you. And if that works, I'll keep doing it. Okay? When that doesn't work,
I'll switch.
I'll become your rescuer. I'll take care of you.
When you get to the point that you break down yourself, they want to rescue you.
Yes. Well, I'm just trying to help you. I love you so much. I'm protecting you.
Yeah.
And then they go, oh, see, they're just trying to protect me. Right. And it's a way of engaging in an enmeshed type of relationship where the kid now has to protect that parent because they think that parent's protecting them. Right. And so it's whatever works.
Yeah.
Then the victim is, I've tried this, it didn't work. I tried this, it didn't work. And then they victimize themselves. And the kid wants to fill that in, right?
No, you're okay. Everything's all right.
That's exactly what happens.
I got to take care of you.
You know what's really funny is when we speak to the kids, when we just have sessions with kids and we let them just kind of talk about what life is like for them, we start figuring out not necessarily which person, sometimes we do, but what role people are playing in their lives and how they're trying to fill it by these three prongs. Yeah. Right? We can say, oh, that parent's engaged in rescuing behavior, that parent's engaged in victimized behavior, that parent's engaged in persecuting. And then we can see how the kids are basically responding to those things. And then they fall into a role of a gatekeeper or a distractor or whatever to pull them out of this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to note this triangle tends to be with adults.
Yes.
It's not as some, I can see kids who do play roles in this too.
Right.
More likely, though, they're actually taking on the actions of one of the parents.
The kids are typically responding.
But the parent's doing.
Right. They're typically responding to a parent who's engaged in this.
Yeah.
And so you're right. The drama triangle is typically a parental step. Parents do this more than
children. So how do you take this information with a parent and help them? How do you help them through this?
Well, that's a great question. The first thing that you have to remember is the parent open to that. Are they open to saying, hey, there's some things that I think you're engaged in that might be creating some problem, right? Are they open to you giving that kind of feedback? Because if they're not open to it, you can't help them.
True.
If they're rescuing, they believe they're literally doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not hearing it.
No.
They're not going to hear that. They're going to disagree with you. So what I've learned to do is say, psychoeducate.
Yeah.
Say, so if I think someone's engaged in this type of behavior, I want to say, can I show you something that I'm concerned about could happen?
Okay.
And they go, yeah, what's that? And I just go over the triangle, the different roles.
Just explaining it to them and help them understand these roles exist sometimes.
And then I may say, have you ever engaged in any of these?
Yeah.
And I let them tell me. And if they go, well, yeah, I've done the rescuer. And I'll go, okay, what were you hoping to accomplish there? Mm-hmm. And then they'll tell me. And then I'll say, is it possible when you did that, it could have created this?
Yeah. It opens up a different viewpoint.
Yes. Rather than just like, you're doing that. Yeah. Right. Now, the hard part for us, though, is if we're in court, we have to do it that way.
Yeah.
We have to say, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
So we don't have the time to educate there. Make sense?
Do you ever have, when you are explaining this to a parent, do you have them automatically, well, the other parent's doing this?
All the time.
Yeah.
Because what divorced parents do is when they hear information that is really meant to be helpful to them, they automatically first start by looking at the other side.
Yeah.
And going, are they doing that?
Yeah.
Right? It goes back to a biblical saying. You know, in my opinion, it's like you see the log, or you see the splinter in your brother's eye, but not the log in your own. Mm-hmm. You know the difference between a log and a splinter is?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the size of that. It's almost as if we're being told, like, first look through yourself. Look through your own lens.
Yeah.
So when we're training parents on these things, like today, when we're offering this information about the Cartman drama triangle, my greatest hope for them is that they go, am I engaged in this?
I think that's really important. I think one of the things I see the most when dealing with these families is one or both parents, or even the child, puts aside what they need for themselves, what they want for themselves, because of the drama that's created. And so they're putting themselves aside and not thinking of that person.
Right.
You're always, our society, unfortunately, we're always taught to think of other people. Help other people, help do this, help other people do this. And you don't always get the thought process of, how do I help myself through this?
Well, I can't give to you what I don't have.
Yeah.
So I can help you, but I can only help you so far.
Yeah.
Right. But if I can learn to be the best version of myself.
Exactly.
How much more can then I serve?
Yeah.
I think that's 100%.
I think that's why everyone needs therapy. We all need to figure this out.
What do they make us do as therapists?
Go to therapy.
Need I say more? Yeah, we have to have our own way. We have our own, what do we call ours? The professional cuddle group. There's old Carl Whitaker saying. Yeah, you develop a professional cuddle group. Mr. Carl Whitaker, I'll quote who it was.
Yeah.
Which is basically therapists need therapists. And so the therapist must, have their conversations to kind of air them out so we can manage the stuff that comes to us all the time. So in a sense, we're creating our own rescuers. No, I'm kidding. Bad joke. But
Bad joke.
Yeah, not in that sense, right? So this is what I think I want people to kind of gather from this. There's 3 tiers. You have the persecutor, the rescuer, you have the victim, okay? And the way it's played out typically, especially in divorce, is the persecutor will be more of the attack side.
Yeah.
Right? And it may be a how dare you? You're so ungrateful, could come out like that. Or it could be about another person. They're so ungrateful, they're just a big jerk, whatever. Right.
Or the other parent is blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
Yeah. The other parent is just mean. They're just rude. They don't want to talk. They don't care. They only care about themselves. I hear that a lot.
Right. They're narcissists.
They're narcissists. God, I hate
it. It gets so overused.
It is very overused, and it's not always it's not the main point.
Right. But the persecutor might use those terms. Yeah. Okay. The rescuer then comes in.
Yep.
And says, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take care of this. Right. It's almost the hero.
Yeah.
Right. Not in the everything we talk about. Have you noticed? There's a good side to it, and there's not a good side. Like the hero villain episode of there's a good side and a bad side. You can become sometimes you're not a villain, but you'll play the role of villain because you've been put into it.
Yeah.
Right. And so the rescuer does the same thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes they rescue because they're put into that role, but don't realize that when they do that, it could be creating a negative cycle.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when you start talking too much or adding too much information, you're being too helpful in a way.
Yeah.
Trying to, instead of allowing your kids to do the things they need to do, you do it for them.
Well, I think this is the part right here that's really important is the rescuer appears self-sacrificing.
Yeah. But really they're doing it because they want you to need them.
Say that again.
They want you to need them. They want to be needed.
The rescuer is really needing you to rescue them, but they're making it seem as if I'm rescuing you.
Correct. And I see this a lot with parents because they do overcompensate for the other parent if the other parent's not as involved, and they want to do everything for their kids, which is great. But at the same time, do your kids want you to?
Right.
Ask the kids.
Well, and it says here that this is the person who's typically overly helpful.
Yeah.
Because they like to be needed.
Yeah.
Right.
They offer guidance and advice when no one asks. No one likes that person. I mean,
sorry,
it's
Jen,
hard. I've been that person before. That's one reason I said that.
Jen.
But anyway, at the same time, you really have to watch the whole purpose of this is really to understand yourself and how you might be perceived or how what your ultimate goal is and how it can help you be a better version of yourself.
Yes. It comes down to, are you doing it for them or for you?
Yeah.
Because you'll make it seem as if it's for them, but in reality, you're doing it for something within yourself. That's what a rescuer, right?
Yeah.
The victim is the person who, I believe, is extremely stuck, doesn't know what to do, and so now I can't manipulate the situation, so I'm going to become the victim here. I'm going to become like it's all me, everyone just thinks I'm the worst piece of crap or whatever. And so then they get that like, no, you're not, you're right. And so all you got to remember is it's called a drama triangle because it's a cycle.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because when people get into that cycle of playing that, they get stuck.
Yeah.
And so they don't realize that it's happening. And the way that you discern it is you watch how they keep reacting or responding to situations is the way that you can discern how they flow through those roles. The question the statement I want to make to everyone is, how do you break it?
Yeah.
You break it by acknowledging its presence.
Yes.
You have to know that you're engaged in the behavior.
Yeah. You've got to be very self-aware.
It's self-awareness.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing this, right? Mm-hmm. And don't take offense to someone who's calling it out on you.
Yeah.
Right? If they call it out on you, don't look at it as like, become defensive, like, how dare you? You have to go, wait, am I?
Yeah. You really have to think about how you really, what you want to say versus what you feel.
What do you mean?
Well, I think it's important the way we react to things is sometimes we want to react with emotion. And this is an emotional cycle.
Right.
It's very emotional in every aspect of it. But if you can stop yourself long enough to think logically, what's the best solution for this issue, you might actually come out with a better way to break this triangle.
When you were saying that, this image popped in my mind when I was I was going up for my first Holy Communion. So I'm getting my sacrament for first Holy Communion. And we had nuns. I had nuns that did that for us. Go back, way back for me. So the nun's at the front, and she has this box, and it's wrapped like a gift. And as we walk up, she says, "I'm going to show you God's greatest gift to the world." And we're like, okay, like, we don't know what's in this box.
Yeah.
So we're all curious, and everyone gets in a line, and one by one we go and look inside the box.
Yeah.
And instead of, and knowing me, I must have been a therapist when I was a kid, because I'm watching how other people are reacting to what they saw in the box.
Yeah.
So that I could kind of get an idea of what I'm about to find.
Yeah.
And some people walked away and nothing, couldn't read them.
Yeah.
Other people walked away and just like whatever, like rolled their eyes.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, it's probably something not that big of a deal, whatever.
Yeah.
It's my turn. She opens the box.
Mm-hmm.
I look in the box. Do you want to know what's in there?
A mirror.
It's a mirror.
I don't know. I didn't even know that, but that's what I thought of.
And I'm looking at it, and what we were told is this is God's greatest gift to the world. And when I look in there, I see myself. Part of me was disappointed because I'm like, I don't feel like I am.
Yeah.
I don't think I am. But I know what she's trying to portray, which is when you go do the work on yourself, you become the gift.
Yeah.
Right? And so like that's really the message is we're not here to persecute anyone.
No.
Right? On this podcast, we're here to tell people like if you'll take the time to look at self and then judge self on that, you get to become the best version of yourself, which means you can actually break a cycle if this is actually happening. You can break this because you're acknowledging it within you. And what I think is interesting too is I had a conversation with actually a client because they were talking about some therapy that they had in the past. They didn't feel was helpful, whatever.
Yeah. And
I said, I remember one of the most confrontational things that therapists, I've watched therapists in training have, was when they told the therapist there's no such thing in an inflexible client, only inflexible therapist.
True.
And the therapists were like, yeah, right. We've had many clients that are just like completely inflexible. We give them homework assignments, we tell them, and they won't do any of it.
No, and that's not what they do.
Well, but the therapist is like, I'm the white coat, you do what I say, and then, kind of that idea.
Yeah, no.
However, when I heard that, I thought what they really are saying is when you want to become helpful, you have to be willing to look at yourself first, see what you're engaged in are you part of the non-movement?
Yeah.
You might create movement and it messes the system up because now we can't play in the same way we used to. Especially if you have one of these people that is engaged in the drama triangle. Yeah. And you get involved as a therapist, you are going to mess that up for them. Yeah. You're going to mess up their ability to be a rescuer. You're going to mess up their ability to be a victim. And they don't like it because that triangle allows them to play a role to pull others into them. Yeah. And you've now interrupted it. Yeah. Makes sense? And so as therapists, that happens. So your question earlier, which is, how do you help someone who's engaged in this, Michael? Yeah. I still struggle with that because I'm like, how do I call someone out on it without going directly to them and saying, you're doing this? Yeah. The only thing I know how to do is educate and then have them tell me if they believe they're engaged in it. Yeah. And
I think that's the best way to do it, though, because you've got to figure it out for yourself sometimes. A lot of people come to therapy thinking we're here to tell you what to do. No. And I have to explain that to people because I literally had a kid last year who wanted me to tell her exactly what to do. And I refused.
Rescue. She wanted you to rescue.
I didn't. I said, you've got to do the work.
Right.
And, we, as therapists, our role isn't to give someone advice necessarily. It is to help you figure out how to be you. Right. And how to work with yourself and how to manage your own self within whatever you're dealing with, including divorce.
What I find in divorce cases is most people come to therapy wanting to be validated on their point of view.
Oh, yeah, totally. They want you to tell them they're right.
And it's hard because what I tell people is if I break down the whole cycle, I can find where you're both right and you're both wrong. Yeah. If I really broke it all down.
Well, and I have lots of conversations with kids like, it's the Three Little Pig story that Janon shared that at sometimes both parents are right. Yeah. They're not lying. Their truth is their truth.
Right.
And it's hard to see that.
And going back to the drama triangle, it's how they tell it.
Exactly.
Right. So when you're engaged in these roles as a persecutor, rescuer, victim, you're telling that story in one version. Yeah. I'm telling the story as the rescuer. I'm telling the story as a victim. I'm telling the story as a persecutor. And whichever one hits, they'll maintain that role. Yeah. Makes sense.
Well, and I think it's interesting because what I've seen looking at this and thinking about it is typically with parents, they are one role with the parent and a different role with the kid. And it changes somewhat, but it's more of, I'm always going to be a persecutor to the ex. And the kid sees that.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid's like, I want them to get along. Even if they're not together.
So does the kid become the rescuer?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's the hard part is like, okay, well, because they're trying to calm both parents down at the same time because we got bickering back and forth and they're in the middle of it.
Yep.
So yeah. But I think this is a really good topic. It's a really interesting way to think about how people relate in divorce and around it and how they can actually work together.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you. So some of the takeaways we hope for you listeners is just remembering that this information, especially on this topic, is really for you to kind of do your own self-work on this and figure out, do I do this sometimes? And not that being a rescuer is a bad thing. I mean, that to rescue is a good thing. However, how you do it, right, can be a bad thing, right? Like eating's not bad. Overeating is, right?
Yeah.
Drinking water's not bad, but you can actually overdrink. Well, you can drink too much.
You can waterlog yourself.
Yeah, it's just interesting because I think that's what we're finding is the balance. How am I doing this? And one way to know if you're not engaged in a drama triangle is asking yourself, am I doing this for me or them?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're doing it for them, you might be in the okay range. When you're doing it for yourself, it might not be okay.
To help fulfill your need.
Correct.
Yeah.
So one of the things, and I didn't say this, I think it actually was Tony Robbins of all people, said, all suffering begins with selfishness.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he didn't say some. All suffering begins with selfishness.
Yeah.
So then the question is the opposite true? That all healing and all joy, all kindness, all love begins with selflessness?
Kind of.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
You think about it, right? Is the opposite also true? So what we're saying is, maybe you think of what the opposite is of the drama triangle. What's the opposite of a persecutor? What's the opposite of a rescuer?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And what's the opposite of a victim?
Yeah.
And maybe that's the role. And it would be fun to do is maybe we create our own triangle.
Yeah.
I think that would be interesting. We should create our own triangle of the 3 roles you can play instead of.
Yeah. Should
we do it?
We should. We should do that.
Okay.
I'm
cool with that.
The only other thing I would add is, because what you just said is that all the suffering begins with selfishness. Thinking of yourself and working on yourself is not selfish. And I think we need to be clear on that, right? Because people get confused. They're like, well, if I only think about myself, I'm being selfish. I'm like, no, that's...
When you're working on yourself, yeah, it's not selfish.
It's different. And so just to be clear, working on yourself is not, it is a selfless thing, because if you are the best version of you, you can give the best version of you.
Mm.
If you're not going to give the best version of you.
And we're always working on it. We're always doing more.
Always working on ourselves.
You think we'll always have a job?
Yeah.
You say it like you're disappointed.
No, we will always have a job because we all grow and we change and we all go through things. Yeah. And I think it's important that we do have a job, and that more and more people are being open to going to therapy, being open to mental health service issues that come up, because it's natural. We all have struggles. Everybody has feelings and struggles, and
that was the whole point of the podcast, was to get the information before people, to say, we don't know how to get to all of you, but we want to hit most of you as much as we can, so that you can get the information that is most helpful to your situation when navigating a hard topic like divorce.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Jen, thank you for switching roles with me for a second. Let me do a lot of talking here. Got a lot out. Follow us on Instagram, everyone. We're at Brighter Possibilities FC. You can also find us on Facebook at Brighter Possibilities Family Counseling. Our website is brighterpossibilitiesfc.com. And you can find us on all the different versions of the podcast. Especially, we have YouTube now. I love that we have our videos going up. I think those are fun, as much as I don't probably like as much watching myself. But I do want to make sure that we get to the right platform for you so you can find us. So thank you so much again for being here. Keep moving forward, everyone.